the first international conference on family and sustainable development, the educational perspective in Nigeria. In picking the theme, a couple of things were in our minds. We were preoccupied with the contemporary situations in our country, Nigeria. Here we are, I'm sure our foreign visitors, when they were coming, saw at the airport big banners and posters. And if you watched television recently, you see commercials that say, if you see corruption, report it immediately. There are whistleblower programs. This is an issue that preoccupied us at the time we were conceiving this conference. And we ask ourselves, what is the better solution? What role can parents play? The second challenge we had of preoccupation, if I get this thing to work, was how do we tie into the UN? How is Nigeria performing, if you like, as a member country that signed the Sustainable Development Goal? In particular, with reference to this year's focal point on the SDG, point number 4, on education, which says it, I quote, ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Ladies and gentlemen, before or on the year 2030. This is where we are preoccupation. But my colleagues and I debated significantly, and some said each of these was enough for a conference. But the reality for us, when we finally resolved, was that this was not a conference in your typical sense. This indeed ought to have been a workshop or a strategy session where we look at ourselves as a nation and appraise ourselves among peers and see how we are doing among the community of nations. How is Nigeria doing? And ask ourselves, what can we do better? And learning from others to go about it. So having agreed on the team, the next challenge we had was, who should be in the workshop? Well, there can't be a workshop without the experts. So we thought this conference, as it's called today, should be a conference or a workshop of no more than 40 people, made up of experts and stakeholders. The objective, therefore, was to then invite, using our friend who has good connection in the UN, the man who lives 1 week per country. We were able to read the UN to get the UN contact to participate. I'm glad to note we have one of their strategies here. We wanted to learn from the Europeans. And we thought, therefore, we should bring our national and international experts, proprietors in the educational sector, and managers at both the secondary and tertiary level. So that is the background to this conference. One of the greatest challenges we have today is behavioral or character. Corruption and the war of corruption is a challenge. It's a reflection of the character of the people who are involved or leading us. But let me not dwell too much on that. What is also clear today in our society is that Nigeria has the largest number of out-of-school children at the primary school level. 10.5 by UN studies dated or reports of 2012. The quality of education in Nigeria today is generally adjudged as poor. there's a quality gap in our education system. A cursory look at the statistics published by WAEC of West African School certificate result between 2006 and 2015 shows only about 26%, 25.63% to be exact, pass WAEC. That's why they have 5 credits, including English and maths. Even those who pass, the quality gap resurfaced to the extent that Nigerian universities had to institutionalize, put in place an alternative mechanism of selecting their own students. They now have to do other preparatory, have to go through some preparatory programs. And those who leave high school to go directly have to spend a year preparing also. But what happens in the industry? Ultimate consumer. I can tell you as an employer of labor, it is a struggle. And the bigger companies have now programs for training graduates without any guarantee of employment. They train them for an additional up to 2 years before they even consider them for an interview. Well, for us, there's a need for a new policy. But we need government to buy into it. And I think really, for us today, and indeed with the help of our friends who are here from the UN, from Europe, and elsewhere, to help us chart something that we can present and have government buying. And as a nation, we can really become the best which we can be. Thank you very much.
When the chairman was delivering the welcome address, he touched on a lot of sensitive issues. And while he was doing that, he reminded me of a few things that I had also experienced in my home. My children are university graduates now, but when they were in the secondary school, my wife and I employed someone to teach them at home. Only to find out after a few months that 4 times in a week, the teacher only visited twice. And then towards the end of the program, he reduced it to 1. And we didn't know until my children had a bit of a quarrel, and they started saying, I'll tell mommy, I'll tell mommy. And eventually we discovered that it was because we didn't pay attention to what was going on in the house. And the reason basically was that we didn't have time. So we wasted money and wasted the time of our children, and that time was difficult for us to recover. But we were lucky that we discovered it, because I believe that quite a number of the parents were unable to discover such things, and it became very late. So it's very important for us in the family to pay attention. You know, I was discussing with a few friends the other day, and we said, why is it that we served our parents? We served our parents, and now our children do not want to serve us. We're even serving our children. You know, the system is changing, but for us to be able to put our children in positions for them to serve themselves, we need to have a good foundation for them, and it starts with education. And that's why SDG 4 is very important. And the emphasis is an opportunity for lifelong learning. Like the chairman said, unless you have that, you know, you won't be able to achieve any other thing. I don't want to bore, but I'll mention one other experience, you know, for us to actually learn. That is not just the kids or parents. I was lecturing part-time in ESUT, and I gave seminar papers, master's degree students. And one of my students, a lady, sent in her seminar papers, and in between 2 pages, she put 5,000 naira, stapled it, and had asked my PA to collect all the papers, put in a carton for me to deal with, you know, at the appropriate time. And when I found it, I asked my PA to call her, And when I questioned her why, she said, oh no, just for you to buy recharge cards. I said, I don't use recharge cards. But don't ever try this, because I have never asked any of you to offer me money. This is simply a seminar paper, not even an exam. The next semester, she did not attend my classes. She chose not to. But that evening, her husband called me, took my number and said, oh, I'm this, my wife did something, I want to appeal to you to forgive her. It's part of the system. And I said, look, when we were younger, you're pleading on behalf of your wife, but when we were younger, what your wife has done was enough to crumble your marriage. And here you are pleading and telling me that, oh, it's part of the system, it's part of the society. So when we're talking about development, education, and the family, it's an all-inclusive thing, the child and the parents. So we've got experts here to lead us. They have 20 minutes to make the delivery, and then there will be comments, there will be questions. The first on the list is the topic, causes and consequences of youth unemployment for family formation and development. We're honored to have our friend, sorry, I can't say the name anymore.
Okay, let's see. Name rights by power always.
We're honored to have our friend Esuna Gurova, policy specialist, UNDP New York, who is here with us to make a presentation on the topic that I've just mentioned. Shall we put our hands together for her, please?
It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm honored to present one of the papers that I have been working on, and I wanted to share some of the findings and share the international perspective. So the focus of my presentation today is more on youth, and why youth is because what is youth? Youth is defined by the transition from childhood, which is often associated with completing the compulsory education, to adulthood. This is when, at least traditionally, young people start to find their first job. But today, I think the borders about this transition have been changed. So I will talk more about it in the presentation. So the key questions that I ask in the paper and I'd like to present today is, what is the role of youth employment in strengthening families? Second, how can policies improve youth employment and contribute to more stable and sustainable family outcomes? And finally, what lessons can be learned from international experience? So let me start with some key messages of the presentation. Firstly, today's youth, I think we all agree, is the next generation, as the statement by International Federation for Family Development made. And investing in youth employment is crucial in improving the well-being of families. How this can be done? It can be done through different policies and programs that aim at creating not just jobs per se, but creating productive, quality, and well-paid jobs, promoting training to young people where necessary, and also provide social benefits and social assistance where necessary. And what is important here is also that these policies and programs are seen as integral part of family policies, which can help achieve broader development outcomes that are related to poverty eradication, to economic prosperity, and more inclusive and coherent society. So as I mentioned earlier, let me start first what I mean by youth. Who are these young people? Generally, youth is understood as a period of transition from childhood that is normally associated with completing the compulsory education, to adulthood that traditionally is seen as finding the first job, full-time job. But at the same time, what we have noticed is that the patterns of transition vary as a result of differences in educational attainment and aspirations, choice of profession that young people choose, availability of jobs, that is a big problem today, and different family background and institutional arrangements. So in my presentation, in my paper, I adopt the definition of the United Nations, which defines youth as persons between 15 and 24 years old, while acknowledging that young people are heterogeneous, they're different depending in different contexts and situations. So why youth employment matters for families and sustainable development? First, the young people represent an important resource for society, which accounts for over 18% of the world's population and more than 15% of world's labor force, according to the International Labour Organization. Achievement of sustainable development largely depends on how well families are empowered to contribute to sustainable development goals. And what we also know is that families do much better in a supportive policy environment, the environment that helps them to support children transitioning in adulthood and in which young people are engaged in paid, productive work. And employment, and I think we all agree, provides an important economic foundation for young people to create their own families or contribute to the well-being of other family members. So let me now tell you more a bit about the global unemployment trends. So overall, the global youth unemployment rate reached 13.1% in 2016, and number of unemployed youth reached 71 million in 2017. This is particularly marked in emerging countries, but also, as we can see, in developed countries, according to available data, the percentage is highest, which is 14.3%. Partly also because there is more data available. This is why sometimes statistics can also, you need to be cautious about the statistics. But then I think there is a graph. So what is also, apart from unemployment per se, what we also notice that many young people, they are working. So there is a job. But the problem is that they don't have enough income to support themselves and to lift themselves out of poverty. Around 156 million young people in emerging developing countries live in extreme or moderate poverty, despite the fact that they have a job. High incidence of working poverty and informality among young people is often associated with high proportion of youth that are involved in domestic service, unpaid family work, which is mainly and primarily concerning women, especially in developing countries. Now, let us look at the regional youth unemployment trends. We have data here mainly from 2007 to 2014. As you can see, youth unemployment has gone up globally, but if you look at Africa, in particular sub-Saharan Africa, there has been some variation. It went up, but then over recent years, it has gone a little bit down. And then in 2016, it accounted to 10.9%. So let me tell you more a little bit about the research findings about youth unemployment in Africa. As we all know, Africa has the world's youngest population, which provides a huge opportunity. At the same time, youth unemployment is particularly relevant in view of this demographic profile. And what the data shows is that nearly 200 million people in Africa between 15 and 24 years old, and that number is expected to double in the next 30 years. In particular, in sub-Saharan Africa, the main labor market challenge is not so much lack of employment, but it's a poor quality employment. And this problem is reinforced by rapid population growth, especially the growing working age population. The latest data by the UN DESE shows that 247 million people are in vulnerable employment in 2016, which is nearly 68% of all those that have a job. And that number is expected to increase in the coming years. And that problem is particular, as I mentioned earlier, is particularly relevant and pertinent to women who are found more in informal and vulnerable types of employment. And what are the common reasons for female low activity overall is, first is often family responsibilities, it's domestic work, low levels of educational attainment. So there are some major consequences of youth unemployment. I think we all agree on this, but I think it's important to bear in mind and keep that in mind when designing right policies. So youth unemployment leads to marginalization in the labor market. It has risks in terms of mental health. It has also antisocial and criminal behavior effects. There are also serious impacts on families, and that means that it affects the formation of the family, as I mentioned earlier. There is difficult transition to independent adulthood that is likely to have a reinforcing effect in relation to demographic and fertility trends. And there's also intergenerational effect, which means that young people's own failure sometimes can accumulate this economic and social capital that can perpetuate the same cycle for their children. So it becomes a vicious circle. So what policy measures have been undertaken in different countries to address youth unemployment? Firstly is that there's a global focus and a move towards this active labor market policies, and that means that provision of job search assistance programs that are often cost-effective in other European countries also develop vocational education and reduce youth unemployment. And there are also some country case examples in Latin America that also show some positive results in vocational training. Another one, and I think there's also a developing trend in Nigeria, is that there's support for entrepreneurship and self-employment, and that personally involves access to finance, training, skills development. So in some developing countries, there has been growing support for microfinance schemes for young people. In developed countries, there's development for venture capital to support startups and larger initiatives. There's also this emerging trend of crowdsourcing, which is an option to generate funds for small initiatives. So another important measure that has been undertaken, especially at a time of risk and economic downturn, is social protection. And that mainly involves benefits that are conditioned on being involved in public work. So for instance, there's a success story in Australia on youth allowance that provides money to young people if they're engaged in productive work. There are several emerging developing countries that also provide innovative forms of social protection to improve income security for young people in vulnerable employment. And in some countries, such as India and Uganda, there are cash transfer programs that provide resources for funding job searches and supporting skills development. So I would like to conclude my presentation with several messages. Firstly is the overarching objective of employment, both quantity and, as the moderator says, the quality of education needs to be embedded within a more comprehensive framework that provides youth and their families with adequate support. Second, it's important to scale up investment in decent jobs and good quality, in stable, in well-paid jobs for young people so that it can ensure the well-being of families. The aim of policy should be to nurture today's young people through investing in their education, supporting lifelong learning and training opportunities, and providing good quality employment. And these interventions should be well integrated with family policies as an overall comprehensive strategy. On this note, I'd like to thank everybody and then welcome questions and discussions also to hear your view and your perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here and invited by Charles and Ignacio, who I have known for many years, a good friend. We have laughed a lot together. So I'm not very good at keeping the time, so please let me know. I can be out of control. I met a woman from Croatia last week, and she said, I'd rather be poor and have relationships than be rich and live like you do in Sweden. Yep. I will speak about the importance of attachment in the early years of a child and how child-parent relationships are the key to a lifelong learning. I will also discuss the difficulties Sweden have in facing with its children and youth. I will compare Sweden and Finland as they are neighbor countries, similar in many ways, but with different approaches concerning education and the role of families. And I think I might give you more questions than answers. So, is it the one? I am Madeleine, and I have had the most challenging and stimulating work of all. I am a dedicated mother of 5 children, now between the ages of 14 and 28 years old, 4 boys and 1 girl, and I have been a stay-at-home mother for 17 years. Now I work part-time in a business that my husband and I founded in 2006. We construct, produce and manufacture forestry machines called Malva. During 6.5 years, I have been the president of FEFA, European Federation of Parents and Carers at Home, which is an umbrella organization with 19 member organizations in Europe. We work with valuing the unpaid caregiving work, both at the EU and at the UN, and mainly nationally in our different countries, which is very difficult in Sweden. And also, I am the international coordinator of the Swedish organization HARO and work voluntarily in both these organizations. So this is almost a full-time engagement for me. I am a traveler, a storyteller, and an activist. And the best education I have got in life is from being a mother. I am still learning. With a 70-year-old girl, it's very difficult sometimes. And I think that this lifelong learning must include this most difficult, challenging, and rewarding task there is, namely the skill to handle relationships. With a competence in relationships, you can achieve great things and reach high goals. And my personal goal is to make contributions for families, for parents, and most of all for children. I work with this every day, writing to politicians, arranging seminars, conferences, studying, talking to parents and experts, and thinking about how to address the problems and the solutions again and again in new and different ways. We are deeply concerned and see the urgency in supporting parents. The basic growing environment for any child is in a family. And when we take the family away and replace it with a substitute, we need to be even more aware of the effects it might have. A child needs a close emotional attachment during the first years. The caregivers need to have the skills to understand not only their language, but also the words that are not being said. A child's communication grows through the adults they are attached to and the interaction between them. The results in the Swedish schools are decreasing, and the psychological ill health among children and youth is increasing. Sick leave, especially among women, is very high, and mothers use double as many days as fathers on sick leave. From the organization BRIS, the Swedish helpline organization, you can read this in this text in the report from 2013 regarding lacking adult relationships. One of the reasons that the children suffer in silence is that many of them lack a relationship with an adult that they trust and can talk to. And this is in a developed country, they also often feel a sense of shame and guilt about not feeling well, and a sense of responsibility for how others will react to what they have to say, that they will disappoint someone else by saying what they want and need. And other aspects that came forth from the children's accounts were a desire that adults would recognize the signals when they were not feeling well early on and react. So children show us what they need by the way they act, or in the way when they don't act, and we need to be there and we need to recognize the signals. And that will be so much easier if we have built a strong attachment and relationship in the early years of childhood. So I will compare this is a picture from Sweden and snow. I wanted to bring the snow here. So I will compare it Finland and Sweden. We are very similar in so many ways, but I was there maybe 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago at a conference, and it's like coming to a very different country. It's like I haven't been here more than one day, but I have the sense of there is something different when you come here than if you're at a conference in Sweden or anywhere in Sweden. It's warmer here. In Finland, the state is responsible for the school and the education system, but the municipalities are responsible for organizing the teaching, and it has been so ever since the 20s. In Sweden, the responsibility is under the municipalities, and therefore there are more differences between the schools, and the main responsibility is not very clear. The differences between each school in Finland are very small. You can go to any school and it's good. You will know it's good. While in Finland, the differences are huge. 50% of the Swedish students attend private schools, while it's only 2% in Finland. In both countries, they start school at 7 years of age. Sweden spends about more than $5,000 more per year on each student. And then there's a lot more, 50% of the children are at home in their families in Finland, while in Sweden it's only 7% of the children who are 3 years old who are at home in a family environment. They are in preschools. If the well-being is going down, there is something we do wrong, and it will have huge effects in many areas. Children who don't feel good cannot function in school and need to be at home, and a parent maybe has to stay at home from work. And it will both be very expensive and create unnecessary suffering. We pay a lot of money for parents to stay at home taking care of their children today, when they are sick, not when they are healthy. Governments need to work on a long time basis and see that the more we care and focus on the child's first years, the more we will gain in the end. Sweden from a distance seems to be perfect, and in many, many, many ways it is. I really love my country, and it's beautiful, and the people are very, very friendly and very nice, but they are too obedient. They do as they are told. And to have a country or citizens like that, you need to be aware as a leader. We have to have very mature leaders, which is not the case. the role model country on earth it is seen as. It is a wealthy society, and we have the freedom to make different choices. It's beautiful nature. We have high taxes that give us social security, free education, and childcare, among so many other things. But we have been raised in believing that the state is strong and can care for us when we need support to such a degree that we let go of our parental responsibilities without thinking there's an option. We trust the state to do a better job than ourselves when we leave our children to daycare and before and after school care. And at the same time, we diminish our ability to grow and develop in our parenthood. So we have, the parents are rather weak. The parenthood is not strong. You can see it when you see how people care for the children in public areas. They are not in control of their children. The children are taking control because they have to. Okay. In Sweden, the family has become a word without value, or even a controversial term. We prefer to talk about individuals, and we even individualize children, believing that they can protect their rights themselves. It is important that we accept that children are not able to care for themselves for many years and that they need protection from someone else. Then we need to agree on who is responsible for the child. Is it the parents or is it the state? According to the Convention of the Rights of the Child and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the parents have the main responsibility, and the role of the state is to ensure the child protection. This must mean that in the typical case of a healthy family, the parents are fully responsible and the ones to make the key decisions on raising their children. In Sweden, the state puts a lot of effort into persuading its citizens that preschool from the age of 1 is the ideal form of childcare or education and better than parental care. This point is underscored and a huge subsidy for preschool is given, but no support at all for parents to take care of the children themselves. And this cannot be in alignment with the intention in either of these conventions. Okay, so I have used my time. I had more to say, but there is nothing wrong with seeking high educational standards and accountability, but there is surely something very wrong indeed if it comes at the cost of natural development. So I end with this, and with my youngest children. So thank you very much.
We only know how hard it has been to be able to be here today for the three of us, because we had different commitments, complications, but here we are. I think we are here because we think it's worth what we're doing today. We are saying that Nigeria has a very important role to play in the international arena nowadays. I'm not going to get into this now in detail, but I would like to tell you that you can be sure that a lot of people will benefit if you do good things in this country. So it's worth working for it, trying as many times as we need to try it, and then to be persistent. This said, I'm going to go to the light area, I think, because this way I can see you better and you can probably see me better too. Very quickly, let me explain to you what has happened with family at the UN during the past years. First, we have the Declaration of Human Rights, and there it says that men and women, in the original French, chacun, chaque femme, that everyone, every woman of full age have the right to marry and found a family. So family is a right we all have. I'm saying this because sometimes family, we just had the explanation from Sweden, is seen more as something different. Okay? Something you can decide about. No, you have the right, but you have the right to found a family. And family, as we'll see, is about commitment. It's about free and full consent to build this fundamental group unit of society. And that's the reason why the family is entitled to protection. If we change family and we start calling family to other kinds of, of social union, then we lose this reason for entitlement to protection, which is what is happening today in many ways. During the years, we just had some explanation of this too, the focus has moved from family to individuals first. So the United Nations system has been very carefully trying to protect human rights of groups. Women, children, minorities, handicapped or disabled, whatever you want to call them, etc., etc., etc. And we have lost this focus. We haven't realized that helping families, we're helping all the members of the family. We're helping men, women, children, relatives, extended family, minorities, etc., etc. When people are able to get quality education, they can break from the cycle of poverty. There's a very recent UNESCO paper, I will quote after, that shows the direct relation between education and development all over the world. Education helps to reduce inequalities, to live more healthy lives, to foster tolerance, and to more peaceful societies. But again, we're talking about quality education. Just a very small example. In Brazil, they have been talking a lot about this program, Bolsa Familia, which is a subsidy to families to help them bring children to school and not having them working. Okay, this was a good idea. But then you realize that teachers' absenteeism in primary education is over 60%. So what's the point of bringing children to school if they're not going to find teachers there? You see, that's why this word quality education is so important. So this is the UNESCO paper I was mentioning before, that show out of school rates will presumably remain well below the target for generations to come. And here you can see a world map with the primary out of school rate in 2015. South was also reporting something similar. But you can see there that Nigeria is between the red countries. It's not in a very good situation. So my main message is that education can play a transformative role if policies do far more to improve access and inclusion. These are two very important. If adults completed secondary school, the global poverty rate would be more than half. So this is what this paper demonstrates. Okay? That if we really put the effort to help adults complete secondary school, things will change completely. Focus on quality, we've talked about this. Role of parents, I think we've talked about this too. Madeleine did, Suna did. Parental education, we will have some examples after, that Charles was mentioning. Flexicurity, which is a European concept you're maybe not very familiar with, it's important because let me explain very, very quickly. The problem now is not that women are getting more and more into the labor market in developing countries, which is certainly happening. The problem is they're getting into a labor market which is men-tailored, which is made for men, which doesn't allow women to be mothers. 6 recommendations, I think that they're very, very important if you want quality education to be a reality in a country. First, consider quality education not only as an investment. Most of the time it's not even considered as an investment, by the way, but as the best investment for the future of the country. This is something that I think we need to repeat all the time, once and again, because lawmakers, politicians realize this, but they need to be told, and they need to be shown the results of it. Second, implement work-family policies to promote gender equality and prevent time poverty. We were talking this morning during breakfast. In the first world, we have solved material problems, but we are in another kind of poverty, which is also very bad, time poverty, because it leads to poverty of affection, poverty of family relations, poverty of intergenerational solidarity. Third, support inclusive parental education programs to allow parents to fulfill their role. It's not that parents don't want to fulfill their role, but that they need to be told how to do it. Develop adequate conditions for teachers to work in an equitable school system. I just talked about that. 5, ensure that all girls and boys have access to early childhood education or development. Okay? And we could talk a lot about this, but let's leave it just here. This is important too. And finally, build education facilities that provide safe, non-violent, and effective learning for all. Let me finish with a good anecdote from Sweden, if I may. No, because many people say, okay, very good. This is very nice, you know, we can tell this if you want, but this is very expensive. We don't have money for this. No. Most of the countries have more than enough money for this. Nigeria has a lot of money for this. And because it's not so expensive. And it's also, of course, a question of priorities. I was talking to a Swedish minister, and I told him, and I don't speak very well, well, you can do all this you do with the welfare state because you're a rich country. Small and rich. So you have few people, 10 million people. I think there's less people in the whole of Sweden than in Lagos, probably. And it's, you know, they have a lot of money. And he said, well, I'm not so sure about that. Because, you know, I'm from Spain. So he was telling me, you know, some years ago we were thinking of getting a high-speed railway network as you have in Spain. But we decided we couldn't afford it. Because we thought it was more important to invest in education. They're considering education as an investment, probably in the wrong direction. but they're investing on it a lot. Just, I think it was 1 year ago, Stockholm declined the possibility of being the place where the next Olympics will be, or the Olympics in some years will be held. And they say, we don't want it, so thank you very much for the opportunity, but we don't want it. Because we prefer to invest on social policies. So maybe time has arrived now for many countries to start acting also like this. Thank you very much.
Please indicate by raising up your hand if you have a question and if you have a comment. I don't know whether papers were circulated during the speech. The idea was to write down your note if you do have a chance to collect them. If none, just raise up your hand, introduce yourself, and then ask your question. But please indicate who you want, as a member of the panel, you want to comment on your own, to answer your question. I will also, as a privilege, call on certain people to make comment, because I think here, if you don't have a comment, if you don't have a question, we are sure some of you have enough experience to tell us something which will be useful. So it's the privilege of the chairman to do that if you do not ask a question. So first question, we'll take the first 3 or 4, so we can go.
My name is Shino Ibutui. My question will go to Dr. CS. I think I'm correct. The very last point you made is quite relevant, and that is something I'm thinking about as the paper will be delivered, because most of these international perspectives that we see are not really that familiar with us in Nigeria because of our peculiar situations. But you did mention one thing, that is the priority we place on our programs. So you've given us examples of why developed countries as they are will choose to invest more in family, more in education than in, say, Olympics or race system or whatever. This is a matter of priority. But as an organization that I think you work for, what are the programs or what are the efforts that have been made to convince policymakers in a country like ours, as we have in Nigeria, to re-strategize and re-evaluate their priorities, making education the primary goal of development?
All protocols observed. My name is Chiamaka Bobimano. My first question goes to Dr. Dugarova. I took note of what you termed working poverty. And here in Nigeria, it's so much with us. Many people are actually working, but it's as good as staying at home. And so my question is, what do you think we can do to make sure that the young people are not just working, but also earning a living to also sustain or help their family? And then my second question goes to Mrs. Modlin. Yes, we are at a crossroad, not just the family, but women, the mothers especially. I resonate with your story about having to quit day job to take care of your family. Many of us find ourselves in the same situation, and it's always a very difficult decision to take. Not just you as an individual now, but sometimes it comes with other psychological battles. You know, oh, she has left work because somehow the society had groomed us to think that you go to school, get a degree, and get a job. Otherwise, you stay at home, you're as good as useless. And then people don't even want to hear things like, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom. They look at you as probably you're not functional or even useful to the society. So how do we break even, especially as we also link it to what Mr. Baskus, said about the flexicurity. Many women are doing work that probably men would ordinarily and comfortably do. But for the fact that we are expected to be mothers, it's difficult for us to function outside the home as well as take care But again, my question is, how do you now marry that to the fact that family, living and parenting is supposed to be the job of both the father and the mother? At the same time, we are saying, okay, let the men go out and do those work, let women stay back home and take care of children. So how do we marry all of this? Thank you.
For Dr. Esuna, yeah, we've noted the challenges, especially in developing nations. So what are some of the direct intervention policies the UNDP is having or planning to make in these developing nations, following the points you raised? Then, of course, we're all agreed to the fact that parents are the first educators of their children. But we have this challenge, especially in this side of the world, where we also have uneducated parents, and even some teachers that just take the job as the next thing available, not that they are trained. I think this will go to Dr. Sosias. Thank you.
My name is Chika Balobi. I write for Sun newspaper. My question goes to Mrs. Wallen, I suppose. We all know the importance of good parenting and importance of parents in the life of a child. Just like my colleagues mentioned, but where you have missed the opportunity because maybe you're busy with work, and then a particular stage of the child's life is lost. How do we reinvent the wheel? Is it possible to reinvent the wheel? Or do we have any remedial measure in that case? You've missed a particular stage of a child's life. Is it possible to go back to remedy what you have lost? Thank you.
Well, let me tell you first that all these experiences from other countries, from different parts of the world, maybe they are not directly applicable to Nigeria or to some other countries, but I think it's good to know about the lessons learned, not to get into the same mistakes. Because what we see, for instance, in Nigeria, is that some steps are maybe not in the best direction. We'll have to talk a lot more about this. But why? Because not of any prejudice or anything, no, because what we have learned in other places, and maybe it would be applicable here. Anyway, this said, you asked me about what kind of policies. Let me tell you something which I think is very, very clear. What we aim for as the International Federation for Family Development, the main family organization working at the UN, is to implement the family perspective everywhere. And we have a mandate from DESA for that, and even now DESA has the mandate to do it through the focal point of the family. What does family perspective mean? Maybe you're familiar with environmental perspective or gender perspective. It means there should be a set of indicators to have a family impact report to know if that will benefit family or not. And we're precisely working on this now on a global perspective. Esuna is part of one of our projects, global projects, on defining family well-being indicators with experts from all over the world. We have an African expert too, of course. And the idea is to provide governments with indicators to allow them to know if something is good for families or not. Just it has to be done with gender equality or with environmental perspective.
Thank you very much. I thought since you were studying, maybe you want to address a question on flexicurity, which was asked by Chimaka.
Yeah, well, flexicurity is something that has to do a lot with education. Because First, when we talk about the traditional family, we're really talking about families after the Industrial Revolution, more or less, in a worldwide perspective. I mean, in the past, women used to work, you know, with animals in rural areas, but they had this facility. They could stop working when they have to, you know, to be with their children. Now, if we take this model of man as a breadwinner going to work and men staying at home, then we're not allowing women to work many years because, and at the same time being able to be there for their children when they're young. Family is not only about children. Family is also about sick people, about elder people. So this concept of care is very important. When you have something who is, a kid or a sick person or an old person, you need to take care of them, and we all need this sometimes in our life. So flexicurity is about being clever enough, intelligent enough from the point of view of lawmakers to understand that the family is the only agent, social agent, that can provide usually that care. Any other solution is much, much more expensive and is not as good, and it becomes bad at the end. For instance, in France, they had a law some years ago saying terminal illnesses, those who suffer terminal illnesses, could choose between staying at home or staying for free at the public hospital with all the technical facilities and everything. 98% choose to stay at home because you have terminal illness. What you want is to feel care. So flexicurity is about finding ways to make this possible. And to make this possible, I have to finish, is also taking into account that there is a man there who can also help sometimes.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. The next set of questions is for Dr. Esuna Ugarova. The question for you from Chimaka. We want to know about, well, there are several questions for you actually. What should we do to ensure people have a living wage? I think that was one. There's another question from Emanuela, which was written. She wants to know what is the UN doing to fund those who cannot afford education. So I think a few of the questions seems to deal with money. Okay.
So thank you for your questions. First about this issue of working poverty, and as the lady asked about, that is relevant in Nigerian context and also in my own country, in Russia, is that what can be done to help young people have decent life and increase their standards of living. So what we do actually, according to the research that I have done and the recommendations that we provide to governments, and again, I would still say that it's the responsibility of the state, first is to increase the salaries, the wages, so there is employment, but what is working poverty is that people have this little income that doesn't provide enough money for them to create families, to have a decent life. So firstly is to improve income security, and this is key. And the second one, I think something that is relevant to the African context and Nigerian specifically is this vulnerable employment and formal work. And here what we recommend is to formalize the labor market so that people are recognized for their work, so that they have a decent security, income security, and also they have access to social protection. About the second question, I would say more about this relevant to my presentation about interventions by UNDP in terms of employment opportunities. Actually, last year, my organization, I don't work specifically on programmatic side, but I know that UNDP has been involved in 126 countries, and it provided employment and livelihood support that included improved policies, institutional measures. It created 1.79 million new jobs and enabled more than 20 million people to benefit from these livelihood opportunities. And to be more specific, I can give you some examples from country case studies. For instance, in Egypt, UNDP supported skills development and access to job opportunities in 42 villages in Upper Egypt by training around 2,250 young people and creating 533 new jobs in manufacturing, in sustainable agriculture and basic services. And in fact, 70% of beneficiaries in these programs were women. Another case study comes from Syria, and Syria, as we know, is a fragile and conflict-affected country. But what UNDP has done is that it helped to revive businesses, created new jobs, and also distributed productive assets and provided vocational training in 9 municipalities. And as a result of that program, 102 micro to small businesses owners were able to restart their businesses and provided nearly 10,000 monthly job opportunities. So, I mean, there are some other country case studies in Europe, but I think I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suna. I think the other questions will be from Madeline Wallen. And they are from Angela Quim, who wanted to know what are the interventions being planned by the UN? No, that's sorry. And then there was a question on recovery plan for those who have missed childcare. They will give good care to their children. Is there a recovery plan? That was a fellow from the journalist from Sun magazine, from newspaper. The other was from Chiamaka. He used the word break even for stay-at-home mothers. What do you do to ensure they are recognized in society even while they are doing what they love to do, or what they love to do by nature? I'm sure you have more than those questions.
Okay, thank you. I start with the question about women and women choosing to stay at home or to go to work. I think women have always worked. It's not like you go away from work and you stay at home to take care of your children and your household. This is a work, and it's more of a work because you work 24 hours a day. You are you don't have vacation. You don't have any free times. You don't get a salary. You don't get recognition. You don't get valued. So I think we need to value and recognize this job, and it's being done from the UN. They are talking about unpaid caregiving work, but if you are in countries like Sweden, where you don't even pay anything, if you are a stay-at-home parent, and it's mostly women, you get nothing, no recognition, no money. While if you leave the child to preschool, they will pay you for leaving the child, and it's about 15,000. The cost for one child in preschool is $15,500 US every year, and this is being given from the state. We pay it with our tax money, but it's amazing. We had this small contribution for some years, and that was about $300 US a month, but the present government, they took it away last year, so we don't even have this 300. And that is very small in Sweden. You cannot live on that. And they say it's a trap for women to stay at home with the children. And of course it's a trap if you cannot have the choice, if they don't support you. You're not supposed to make this choice. So you are forced to work. But there are there are things we could do if we wanted to, like women are the ones who give birth, women live longer than men. If we could take these years taking care of the children when they are young, make the family strong, and we need to support our children. So it's a very good book. And the second question, if we can take back, we cannot take back the years that we miss with our children. The years go by. We only have this life here and now, and we need to prioritize what we do. And also the perception of time is so different between adults and children. For children, the first years, it's a long, long, long period of time. But for us as adults, 1 year is nothing. I think you cannot. The thing you get when you are together close with your child, you cannot get it back, but you can, of course, you can create a good relationship with the child. You can create good relationships with everyone, but it will never be the same attachment. You will never gain the same competences and quality in your parenthood if you lack this. I can see it if I compare me and my husband. I can read my children. They don't have to be in the same room, but I know what they are feeling, and they can read me. So what I have been giving them is the ability to read people. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think, well, the privilege of the chairman, I have some questions, but I think I'll make a comment. There's some questions that I've been asked, which I think, stay-at-home mom. I think for me, maybe I can share some experience here. My wife for a while was a stay-at-home mom, and it was a deliberate decision. She was any more than me at the time I decided to resign to start a business. When I started a business, we came to the conclusion that two of us can't be mad. And that the family can only tolerate one mad person. Because I was out, she was installing computer system or software around the country. She was stranded one night in Calabar because the flight was cancelled, and I was somewhere in the north. And that was enough for us to have what I call family meeting or conference. We had a family meeting and resolved there was a need for somebody to stay at home, because we can't leave the kids stranded. But what was critical was that she needed to be assured that she was going to be treated with respect, and indeed that she has income. I think for us really it was a resolve that we only have one family income. We have one family, and whoever earns the money is the family income. We agree on what to do. Fortunately for me, or fortunately for both of us, she's the executor. She's the executor of those wheels of decisions. I think it works. It's about recognize. For me, what we also share was that I always say women do at least 2 jobs. And I'll tell you, as a young couple coming home from work in the evening, I sit down drinking my beer when I arrive, or wine. She goes to the kitchen and she's worried about the kids for the next day. Maybe 3 jobs. But again, it's about recognizing that your spouse is working and is contributing significantly to the success of your family project. And secondly, appreciating that the income you earn as a breadwinner, or she earned as a breadwinner, is for both of you, and to agree how it should be spent, what are the family priorities. And I think when you agree on some of these fundamentals, the joy and peace, or the self-fulfillment, which I think may have motivated Chiamaka, will be addressed. I think really, salary is not so much the issue. It's recognition, a sense of fulfillment in life, which I think can be agreed and worked out in the family. The second question that I think was asked that was not addressed was the issue of raised by Yinka. It had to do with what's for Ignatius really. He said precisely on gender equality, work and life policy. How do you manage it? Again, I think it depends on how you value your kids. For me, as a father, I feel I'm very lucky. I have 4 girls. And people always tell me I'm very selfish. So I have people who take care of me in my old age. For me, that is the joy because my sons are worried about their family. But ironically, the daughters are concerned about their family, no doubt. But they remember they have parents. So I think it takes the man actually appreciating. Every child is important. There's a saying in my village, you don't know the son or the child that will bury you. It could be your daughter, it could be your son. We don't know who is blessed by God. So I think parents, father and mother need to pay attention to their kids, irrespective of their sex. Education is for all and provide the same standard of education and quality. And spend time with them. No doubt more spend better quality time, but whenever you are there, make up for it. I think I'll stop there. I was going to quote Jack Welch, the GE man, who says, I work, but my wife brings up the kids. And for him, that made them all successful. Thank you.
Tell me how many women childhood dreams come to pass. Tell me how many movies turn out real. There are so many questions I like to ask, so you can understand exactly how I feel. Tell me how many people wish to wear someone else, someone they think the world wants them to be. Tell me how many babies will be born just to die, leaving me with these questions asking why.
There were 8 major factors that are determinants of school level effectiveness. And when we say school level effectiveness, we're actually referring to the effectiveness of teaching and learning and not anything else. Because at the heart of the matter, that's what's important. That's why the teachers are in school, that's why the head teachers are in school, that's why there's a school bus, so that ultimately the children will learn. So in her perception, these 8 domains actually focus on the school as a context and look at factors that influence the effectiveness of teaching and learning. And I will run through them very, very quickly. And through each, draw out why the family or the household is an important characteristic. So the first domain is that of the physical environment. And the physical environment includes the location, the health and safety, equipment within the school environment, infrastructure, resources, etc. All of these can impede learning. And if any of us has been to a public school in Lagos State in the last 10 years, you will understand with me that resources can play a significant factor in whether or not children are actually even able to concentrate and learn in the classroom. So partnerships can provide infrastructural support for designing, for building, for operations and for maintenance. But what I find more importantly, having done a lot of field work in grassroots areas in the last 4 or 5 years, is that parents and communities have a massive role to play. Just about a month ago, we were in a rural school in Ikorodu, and the SBNC members, the school-based management committee members, who represent a layer of governance for the school, were there to meet with us, and they told us that they had spent a lot of time doing an audit of the facilities of the school. It is a public school, by the way. They knew exactly where the challenges were. They knew at what point the fence broke, and when it broke, and what broke it. and how much they would need to repair that fence. They had that kind of granular data because they are genuinely concerned about teaching and learning in that school. You know why? Because many of them have their children in that school. So even in terms of physical infrastructure, schools, parents, communities, families have a significant role to play, as we have found. Secondly is in terms of the curriculum and the assessment. And what's interesting is that a lot of times, I think families abdicate their roles in this area to teachers and to the school. And there is a sense in which we give our children to the school at 8 o'clock and we collect them anytime from 2 to 6 p.m., depending on what the bandwidth of the school is. And we expect that the school has taught our children everything that they need to know. When they come home, it's time for them to take a shower, watch a bit of TV, and then go back the next morning to repeat the cycle. I know this is a bit stretched, but I think that we understand what I'm trying to say. It's the reality of the context in which we live today. So the curriculum, guides the process of teaching. I always like to define the curriculum as a roadmap for national development. So you determine where your country wants to go, and then you work backwards and say what skills and competencies do our people need to have for us to get to that point? And how are we going to ensure that they develop those skills and competencies? And that's when you have a curriculum. So the curriculum is very important. It's a very strategic document. So teaching methods, textbooks, instructional materials, and all of these affect the learning process. And I always say again, that assessments are just the flip side of curriculum. So you have a coin. One side is the curriculum, the other side is the assessment. Whether it's a formative assessment or the summative assessment, assessments help you to determine the effectiveness of your delivery of the curriculum. Are children actually learning? And just one example, the notion of homework. Even the term homework, that presupposes that the families have a role to play in the children being assessed at that level. So again, we see that parents, families have a critical role, a major role to play in assessment and in learning. The third concept that Saunders explains in her domains of school effectiveness is that of teachers. So we know that the training and the professional development of teachers is extremely important. Many studies have shown that the most important school level indicator of learning is actually the teacher. And in fact, when we look at how resources are allocated, whether at the national or the regional level, the bulk of it tends to go to teacher salaries. Teachers are very important. Now, we also know from research that a competent teacher can actually make up for socioeconomic disadvantage. And we've seen it over and over again in statistically significant areas that a good teacher can actually help a child who is otherwise deprived. And teacher motivation and capacity are critical. If you have a teacher who does not want to be in the classroom, those children will not learn. The attitude of the teacher is very important, and this is where researchers refer to something called the Pygmalion effect. And the idea is that the way a teacher perceives a child is the way that child will perform. So if you constantly say to a child, you are fantastic, you are a gem, you are great, you are excellent, your work is so good, you are improving, you will actually begin to see that child improve. And if you say the reverse to that child, you will see that child do the reverse. So again, these are all statistically proven. I'm not pulling any of this out of the air. Teachers are very important. There's a concept of voice, exit, and loyalty. A lot of economists use this in the sense that if you're a consumer, you're about to purchase a product or a service, if you are unhappy with that particular service, you can utilize your voice to complain. Say, you know what, I don't like this product, MTN, my calls are constantly being dropped, I do not want this. However, if there is a sense in which the provider is not responsive, then you have a right as a consumer to exit and leave that particular product. The idea is that loyalty is not an emotional construct. Loyalty comes about as a result of promises being kept by the service provider. And it's exactly the same concept in education. So when you see parents constantly critiquing, especially in our private schools, we don't like this, we're not happy about this, we don't want this, what happens? The schools have to respond. Because if they don't respond, what will happen? They will exit the school, and they will go to another school. So parents have an extremely important role to play. I have personally witnessed how parents have forced teachers out of schools. It's a very, very important role that parents play and families. The fourth concept there is that of leadership, and this is actually school leadership. So the organization and the structure of the school actually affects the learning environment. We've seen this. And we know that when it comes to taking a strategic approach to school improvement, that usually is the forte, not of the teachers, but of the school management, of the leadership of the school. We also know from research that the higher the autonomy of the school, the higher the autonomy of the head of the school, the more accountable the teachers will be. Again, it's a fundamental difference in Nigeria between our state schools and our private schools, where teachers feel accountable to the head teacher in the private school, and teachers are not, by the way the system is designed, accountable to the head teacher in the public school. They are responsible to the district and not to the head teacher in their school. That is actually a fundamental gap between the public and the private sector, and is actually directly related to performance in each type of school. Again, voice, exit, and loyalty come to play here. I have also witnessed a situation where the Parents Teachers Associations have forced a school head to leave that school because they were unhappy with the provision of service. Again, another very important role for families and for parents. The fifth domain of school effectiveness has to do with the well-being and the attendance of pupils. And remember, these are all factors that promote teaching and learning within the context of the school.
The Nigerian Association for Family Development is one of the 66 country organizations that make up the International Federation for Family Development. And we are purely volunteers. We have about 7,000 people in the 5 continents working to help families realize the goal that we have to bring up the children that we have brought into the world to become responsible citizens in the society where they live. Ignacio has quoted this UN declaration, which we came up with. We prepared for the Year of the Family 20 years after, and one of our achievements was we tried to sensitize the UN to really celebrate the Year of the Family, because in 1994 they forgot about it. So in 2004 we took our Congress to the floors of the United Nations in New York. And 10 years after, in 2014, the UN did not want anybody to remind them. In fact, they were part of all the preparations that took place in so many countries in the world. And by the time this thing came up, we came up with a document signed by more than 230 organizations in support of the family as a basis and goal of any development that is being sought of. We look at education as a holistic project that involves both learning in the school and also things that, equipping the children with things that will help them when they grow up and to fit into the society, to be able to work in a team, for instance, to have the work ethic, the proper work ethic, to know that preparation for something is a key for succeeding in that. So in all this, we now, every other person that is in the system is helping, kind of supporting us to achieve this goal that we have made for ourselves. I've talked about this organization, and it's not based on faith, it's not based on race, and it's not even based on any nationality. We're in all the continents, all over the world. These are some of the countries. In Africa, we are in 8 countries for now.
And then, of course, our mission is to support parents, helping them to develop their full potentials and the educators of their children. In doing this, we help them from within our families. So we cannot be hurt that because I'm working to help other parents, then my own family suffer. You know, it's taking the key steps to make sure that our families are functioning. Then we step out, and since we are just helping, every session that we hold is also a learning process, because it's the practical experiences that we have every day that we build on in order to also improve our own families. We basically do this by the case study method. The project is, somebody was asking me, so who takes the key role of making sure that in the family, the children get the proper education that they want? Is it the father or the mother? And I was saying that it's a project that we have two project leaders. One is the father and one is the mother, and each one brings to the table his or her own quality. Not exactly the same, but you know, we contribute based on our nature to the development of our children. And the requirements of our children are different depending on the age that they have. I mean, the age of development that they are. And so we have, for instance, courses for different ages of the children. Now we have them broken down in age brackets of 4, from 0 to 3, 4 to 7, 8 to 10, 11 to 12, and then 13 to 17. And then we also have a course for young adults. In this our environment, having said all this very nice stuff, how have we helped to the education system? We find that, especially in Lagos, where somebody has already said that we have a poverty of time, it's very difficult to really do all this, you know. And the only schools where it had worked was a school that at its inception had this policy that in raising up a child, that the parent is the number 1, then the teachers are number 2, and then the students are the 3rd priority. And so from inception, one secondary school had been involved with us in implementing this approach. And it has been very effective in terms of not really so much about academic performance, because many of the children who go to this school are like middle level, you know, medium income families, and most of the students actually go out. So it's in their leadership position that they take when they leave this country that we have seen a lot of results. You know, they come, either if they are not coming top, the children who come out of these schools, if you see what other social projects that they have been involved wherever they are in their schools, you know, and subsequently in the past 10 years, Lagoon School has also been added. And because of the kind of success, even academic success, because academic success is also as a result of a value system that is based on hard work. So some other schools have been noticing. In Lagos, in spite of not having time, we have done a lot of what we call 0 sessions for many schools. They want to hear about this family enrichment, how it can interface in their own curriculum, how they can get parents to be more and more involved. Because the first advantage it gives to parents is that they become aware of their responsibility, and then they want to help, you know, and then the schools find them much more conducive to this partnership between school and parents. I'm told my time is up, but these are some of the advantages that we have of using family enrichment, which is that it helps us to solve society's problems, and then we face everyday problems with confidence, with joy, and with a sporting spirit. And then it helps us to bond, to form a network of families that can help to move the society forward. And at the end of the day, couples are more united and happier, and it's universal. Thank you very much.
We did some work with Lagos State government who were just studying competitiveness of Nigeria. And in my teaching strategy, I just kept on seeing all sorts of triangles, you know. So you can have by population, you have this kind of triangle, demographics, wealth. This country is just full of triangles. And you know how a triangle is, or a pyramid. There are many at the bottom and few at the top. So we did this study and we're just looking at population trends. And one day the Dean of LBS said to me, you know, there are 10 million people in secondary school and 20 in primary. And I just got thinking, so those in primary, where are they going to go when they're done? I started reading and reading, and you just see that the way this country is, by every segment of 5 years, it's almost like 20 million people, 20 million people, 20 million people. So you see like 80 million below 18 coming up, and you're like, where exactly are they going to go? And is somebody actually thinking about this? So you listen to or you observe the body language of your government, of people in the country, and nobody seems to be talking about this thing. Because the fact is, if they don't get tools to survive independently, then they will survive dependently. They will depend on us whether we like it or not. You know, I have a theory which is totally unacademic and unscientific. But this theory is that human beings have an intrinsic unity. And we can't get away from the fact that we are one. And if you try to get away from the fact that you are one by building a big wall around your local government, your AC and your water, the people outside the world will come and be one with you by jumping over the fence, and you see them crossing the Mediterranean to get to Europe. Because we're one. You can't be there and I'm here. We're one. So I don't know whether to point up or down. But on a more serious note, I want to transmit a sense of urgency. Because of the audience, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about learning effectiveness, learning achievement, because when we got into this, it was about education is not about getting certificates. In this nation, we're focused on getting titles, and that's why we're worried about failure. My child didn't get in. My child, forget about the certificate. Can that person exist on his or her own independently? If that person cannot, that person will come and exist with you dependently. The person will knock on your windscreen and say, hello, hello, I haven't eaten today, where are you going? And I pray we don't see that in this environment more severely, but it is urgent that we give those below tools for independent survival. Otherwise, as I said, they will survive dependently. So something is very wrong, and I preach this gospel everywhere. I think we're not thinking about it enough. And it is about learning. There has been a catastrophic drop in learning achievement in this country, okay? 72% of Nigeria's senior secondary school leavers have failed. Let this sink in. Feel ashamed. Feel horrified. They failed. 72% failed. My own child passed. These ones failed, okay? And to more than 90% failure in some parts of the Northeast. So if you look at the states where it is more than 90%, it is exactly the same states where every statistic in this country is terrible. It is those same 3 states where Boko Haram is, those same 3 states where there's most poverty, those same 3 states. It is the learning achievement that is manifested in the pass rates. It is not a pass problem, it's a learning problem. So children fail because they didn't learn. These are our annual pass rates, okay? So in the last 2 years, we've just crossed 40%. But this is our nation, and this has been going on as we're all watching. And so I'm a bit militant in these issues, so I always fight with Nigerians when they keep talking of power, water, road. Children, the ones inside our house. If you do power, water, the children cannot operate the power anchor. So this is the problem that can sink this country. And we need to think about it. Youth unemployment, this is one that bothers me and keeps me up at night. Youth unemployment is high. How are they going to eat? Okay, and 2 million are coming out every year. And this is the discourse to be having. So if we don't ensure students acquire learning before leaving secondary school, we'll be churning out angry, frustrated youths. Sorry about the bad news, and just 2 more. This is another angle to it, as I hinted before. Where do you have the most security problems in the country? Where do you have the most failure in the country? It's not rocket science. Because one issue about failure, by the way, is when you go through a system and we say you have failed. And now, so I'm off now, so I'm switched. I mean, my own process is over, so let me see what to do next, who I can. And you know, for physical prowess, you don't need education. So to climb a fence, to smash windscreen, you just need to be fit. And so you resort to that which doesn't need training. Well, some physical training, perhaps. Okay? So the polity is fragile, okay? And this is the most painful part. In this country, when you're poor, you stay poor. Because when you're poor, you go to the bad school with the bad teacher, and you fail, and you stay there. So when you're rich, you're able to get a better school and a lesson teacher and escape the trap. But the poorest are the worst hit and stay there, which is tragic. Okay, so basically, this is the final slide. This is our beloved nation. This is public spending on education. So it tells us what we value as a people. Okay? What do we value as a people? It's tragic. This is tragic. So a couple of friends and I said, let's try to do something. Let's look at tech. The whole story we have is about learning achievement. How do you up it? So we, in an unsophisticated way, tend to think about institutions, teachers, learners in the social-cultural context. And there's been little focus on the learners. That's why we spend time with them. Why don't they want to learn? What do they want to do? And these kids are very bright. There was a scenario where we're talking with some kids and telling them why they need to learn to empower themselves. And you see, firstly, the impact of the families. We did a survey, we went to about 15 local governments in Lagos, and we were plotting a couple of things. One of the things we did was to ask the children, SS1 to SS3, what do you fear most in life? Okay. One group, about 89% of them said losing their parents. Another group said not succeeding in life. One of those groups was students in private schools. The other group was students in public schools. Which one's greatest fear in life was losing their parents? Would you guess? Public or private? Private. Okay? Because they felt that they don't have to do anything else. They need them. Those other ones, you find a situation where by defect, they are more or less left on their own. So as a side effect, they feel. So there are many issues here that we really realize we can't tackle this issue without family. Because it is a person coming out of a home that shows up in school. They spend most of their time at home. And education is about knowledge, skills, and attitudes. S and A, skills and attitudes, is a huge part, biggest input to which comes from home. And in fact, in career success, at a point, knowledge gets equated. The skills and attitudes are set apart. And that thing is a family product, it's a parental product. Knowledge, skills, and especially attitudes. Especially attitudes, they hear in what we say and do.
You made this statement, the point about that parents can force teachers to leave schools. And I find it quite, a bit disturbing as well, because, for instance, my country, Russia, in the Soviet Union and Russia until recently, what we had in the education system is that teachers had authority at school, but now what has been changing over recent years is that now it's the parents who basically dictate teachers what they do at school. And so my question is, how do you see this change? Do you think it's positive for children development, for their education? My second question is to the second speaker you mentioned about a course for grandparents. It's a very interesting I think it's an interesting development because we work on a project related to aging, and tomorrow we'll have a session at Lagos Business School where I will speak on the role of older persons in development. So my question is, what the course that you mentioned for grandparents, what results have you achieved in terms of how it affected educational outcomes for children and perhaps for family well-being? And my third question is to the third speaker. You mentioned about the poor families, so this vicious circle that poor families with children, they have poor outcomes in education. So my question is that what those families can do. First, what kind of policy support is provided for those poor families, and what families and individuals themselves can do to support themselves in this environment. Thank you.
My question will be to those people that present us, the three of them, and the fact that how do you intend to get the government people to take the lead in all that we've been saying? All of you have made wonderful contributions this morning, but we cannot take it away from them. The development partners can come and listen to us complaining and sharing our experiences, but it's not going to change anything. We need the government people on ground to ask them to take the lead. The civil society organization have been taking the lead. You can see what is happening here today. Without government intervention, this is caused and everybody is here. So we need, how do we get the government people to come and take the lead to support what the CSOs are doing? That's my question.
I was a bit taken aback about some of the revelations we had there today on the data presented and all that. And I started thinking about what could be really wrong. But the last speaker, Dr. Tonji, actually gave me the right phrase that I've been thinking of, and that is about value system. I think all the problems we have in many of our national lives issues all relate to this. What are our value systems? Either at work or in our homes, in the family. So some 10, 15 years back, I think I listened to Professor Patutomi discuss this issue about our value system as a people. And I think that is what basically affects us generally. In the homes, what are the values parents place on the ways of their children? What do parents want children to achieve? When we go to schools, what are the values placed by school administrators and teachers themselves on the essence of education? And I think that needs to be addressed, because unfortunately, as we have it now, the essence of everything about education in Nigeria is how to make money. If I can put it in layman's, and that is the most apt description. Money, money, money. Whereas education, as I believe we have been taught growing up, has a lot much more than that. How does it make you a better individual as a person? In terms of morality, religion sometimes, social values and all that. It is out of that that all other things can come out from. You can become responsible, and you can become useful to your society, and you can become useful to yourself and your family. Also, the society itself, what does it expect from individuals? It is how much you can make and how much you can give to the society. But as people, as an individual, what does it make us? And I think if we start finding ways to address this value system in terms of what we expect from ourselves as individuals and as a community and as a people, things will begin to change. In schools mainly now, private schools included, most private schools are profit-centered. That is why we are having failure in education. Because most people go into educational business because it seems to be profitable. Whereas I believe the goal of any educational institution, first and foremost, would be to impart the right knowledge and give the right values. So they don't mind making compromises as long as the profit, because any businessman is profit-oriented. So as long as ways in which this profit can be achieved, that is the primary goal. So my questions now, please. The first question will be for Mrs. Modupe, Dr. Mrs. Modupe, please. You analyze a lot of issues about this thing, but what are you doing as an organization to please, should I say, as you said, train the teachers, impart these ideas into them about how better values will be developed? Schools are meant to make profit, at least private schools, I believe. But how do we impart the right values into our students? Because I believe if this is done, learning will become permanent and more better achieving in terms of goals, academically, cognitively, and all others. Then my second question is to Mr. Inedozie as well, because you talk of family, development of the family. How do we get our families, our parents to appreciate this need for value inculcation in our students, in our children at home? And the third point is for Dr. Tony as well. You seem to be in the line of what I was thinking of, because if I can make a personal example, my son, I have a 12-year-old son, and he's so influenced by what he watches on TV and social media. I'm quite amazed sometimes when I see the vast knowledge he has in so many things: sports, music, movies, things like this. He can tell you the whole history of the Premier League, something that happened long before he was born. That even he teaches me most of these things I don't know about it. So I begin to wonder how we can make use of the media, mass media, social media, in inculcating better values and learning experiences in our children along this line. Thank you.
Question for each speaker, actually. For Dr. Modipe Adefeso, I want to believe from the data you presented and from the research that you discovered that most children don't know how to read, they can't read. Actually, it's worrisome. But I want to think that the problem has to do with when our learning is curriculum-centered rather than child-centered. Or do you disagree with that? Our curriculum being curriculum-centered rather than child-centered. That's what I find in most schools. People want to finish the syllabus, but meanwhile, the child has learned nothing from that. I believe it should be a kind of reorientation where we have the child at the center of that learning activity, rather than the syllabus or the curriculum. Therefore, Ike Inedozie, parental education, I was expecting a local example, because as you look at parental education, it differs from continent to continent, country to country. Here in Nigeria, we have peculiar challenges. You have to work, you also have to teach your child. That's the truth. How do we marry the two, okay, to make sure that our children don't suffer? We are able to perform our roles as parents and still work to meet their needs. Therefore, Dr. Tunji Adabeson, I was looking at some graphs or some information you presented, and that graph, I discovered that the Southeast has the highest. I can't remember whether it was heart failure or so. I don't know how true that is, the Southeast. I want to defend that. Success, right? Okay, thank you. And then you're also talking of children valuing soccer. Well, I would have loved to think it's kidnapping instead of soccer. As children valuing soccer and all that. But I think that is changing too. People are still kidnapping as the most lucrative job or lucrative venture rather than soccer. Or do you disagree with that? Thank you very much.
Teaching school heads and teachers about the need for technology in the classroom, the mindset has been a big problem. Like, they don't even understand that, look, we are really concerned about how these children are able to learn, and not just about the monetary gains. So if you're talking about, okay, how can these children learn effectively, their concentration is not really there. How can the government actually change the mindset of these school leaders to be able to better our learning standards, especially in the secondary and primary school? I have a question for Dr. Mudube. Nice presentation there, but being a teacher, really been privileged to work in the school, so I really understand how parents can just come and keep complaining, my child has to be this, my child, oh, this is not operational in this school, what can be done about it? Yes, but how can parents be included in the school curriculum, actively involved, so that they have this, okay, I'm involved in my child's learning system and all, and how can the government checkmate the role shift of parents to teachers? You said something about parents giving their roles to teachers, which is not supposed to be so. So how can the government actually checkmate the role shift of parents to teachers? Thank you so much.
Parents are becoming a bit too strong in terms of, the relationship between parents, schools, and teachers. I think the first thing to say there is maybe a question: is the teacher a knight or is teacher a knave? I think the answer to that question will be based on context and the system in which they operate. So a lot of times we know that as teachers it's very important for us to be unionized, because then together we can fight for our rights and we can work towards better conditions of service for ourselves. But what if what the teachers want is not necessarily aligned with what is best for the child? What if we have those sorts of situations, and we do have those situations in Nigeria? Then what happens? Now, this is obviously not to problematize the teacher, but just to spotlight some of the challenges that necessitate strengthened parental voice. In Nigeria, we had a situation a few months ago in a federal government college. There are only 104 of them in Nigeria. They're elite schools, and they are managed directly by the federal government. In the first instance, I think last year, we had a sexual abuse situation, and a lot of the students confirmed that a teacher was responsible for this. However, under the facilities and water, 3 students died in that school. Has any head rolled? No. If that was your child and my child, I think we'd have something to say about it. So the point I'm trying to make again is not that we should problematize the teacher, but it's to say that we need to strike a balance. Parents do need to have voice. It is very important, especially within the context of Nigeria, which is a developing country, where there are major socioeconomic gaps between parents and the teachers that teach the children of those parents. I think it's really important that parents have that voice. But again, the balance is very important as well. The last question is closely related to the first one, the question about parents being actively involved in curriculum implementation. I think that there are examples of ways that this can be done. So having parental teaching days where you actually encourage parents to come to school and teach. Give them a subject, let them teach. Encourage them to participate in the development of projects, school projects, for children. Just encourage participation in school activities. For working parents, this might be tough, but the point is, if we are not going to abdicate the role of parents, to teachers, it has to be done. Sacrifices have to be made. How can the government, you say, checkmate the role shift of parents to teachers? I'm not sure you can regulate everything. I like to think of the relationship between schools and parents as a de facto social contract. So I think that there are benefits to be derived by parents recognizing that teachers are not parents, are not the parents of their children. Teachers have a role to play. They're local parents, they have a role to play, but they're not the parents. I think that there should be a social contract. There was a question about how does government take the lead. I think that this was yes. I think the question about how does government take the lead in some of these issues that we have discussed earlier in the presentation. You also made a comment about the fact that for-profit schools are really part of the problem, a big part of the problem, because their focus is on profit. The question I want to throw back is, okay, government schools are not for profit. Are the children doing better? Again, it's not to say that private schools are the solution, but let's be realistic here. You know, even in the public sector, where the idea is not to make profit, are the children doing better? I put it to you that the children are doing worse than in these so-called for-profit schools. I don't know if I can run through, can I? No? Okay, I have no time to run through the rest of the comments, so maybe later on. Thank you.
The time is limited. There is always the possibility when we finish to approach any of the speakers in the hall and get the answer to your question. Now they will try to concentrate on they think is of more general interest. I can.
I'll first address the issue of the cost for grandparents. If one is coming from this environment, it's easy to understand the influence of grandparents in the home. For most functional homes, the grandparents are very, very important. So actually, what we try to do in the course is to tell, how to make them realize that their children are not children anymore. And, so the areas that they should leave for the families of the children that they have to operate. Sometimes it's a cultural clash, but the idea is that in order to allow this very positive influence that is, because we have the extended family system mostly in many Nigerian families, but the people of this generation are thinking more like Western families, and they want to break and have a nuclear family that is me and my husband. And in many cases, because of what we see in Lagos, for instance, it doesn't work, So we are trying to get to a win-win situation where that necessary help that is part of our culture, which we also saw at the UN Convention that we should be a community of persons. So it's something that allows the grandparents to do something without, the thing leading to resentment. So it's the course is relatively new. So, but our feedback from the one we had last year is quite positive. All of them signed up this year again, and they're going to bring their friends. But it's very normal for grandparents to help in the raising of children in this country. It's not. It's more of a norm than something that is out of place. So that's what I can say about that. And somebody was asking. Let me address this one because sometimes people say, "Why are you not doing something that is related to our culture?" What we try to teach is character-based education, So, and for instance, if somebody is hardworking, for instance, in Nigeria, it will be the same hard work in London. So what we try to do is, when we tell the story, we remove the accidents and discuss the issues as it affects us. But we want an improvement in the virtue of order, for instance. How do we do it in this environment, given what we have here? We want somebody to be sincere, that want that communication. How do we improve communication? The accidents might not be exactly the same in one country or another, but everybody in all these 66 countries is able to relate to these cases and develop what works for the local environment. So we are not dealing with something that is foreign to us. We are dealing with things that concern us in each local environment. Okay. I'm told that my time is almost up. Then the issue of value education is actually at the root of all the problems that we have, because we have what we call cycles of bad parenting. Unfortunately, if we have not had ourselves formed, we are going to raise children who are like us. And then it keeps going on and going on and going on and going on. So this intervention is actually supposed to, at one stage, enlighten us. But unfortunately, it's the good that gets better. Many people who already have problems, they find it difficult to come to this kind of program. Many of the people you find are people who are already doing something, and unfortunately, those are the ones that keep improving, while many of the other ones think that they don't need these things. So that's why, if it's possible for a bigger organization in terms of legislation, I know in some countries, these courses are run as part of continuing education in the civil service, for instance. But that's not what obtains in this country. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the questions. I'll be brief. I'll start by saying that I'm a passionate Nigerian, and I feel that a people has to build their home. So I dislike certain. I disagree very passionately about this issue of majority of youth going into crime, because it's just not true. You can find, we are 180 something or something million people in this country. Really, 10 million doesn't bother me. The vast majority of people in this country are trying to find their way ahead and looking for somebody to help them out. You can actually have thousands, tens of thousands doing very bad things, but in the grand scheme of things, they become less than 1%. So I think it's wrong to, let's not paint them all like that, because when we do that, we encourage them to become what we painted them as. So a lot of them, I had the privilege to spend about 15 years of my life working with youth, which is what led to this approach of incentivization. Our program is about how do you make a child choose to do what he or she is supposed to do. That's our entire focus, because that's what it means to become an adult, which is what took us to technology. So our learning approach is actually a game whereby if you achieve your learning goals every week, you win prizes, data, airtime, and gifts to spend with your friends, which is what they like. So our job, what we're trying to do is let them want to work by giving them the things they like. And you find that they react. So it's true, tech is really powerful, and I think it's an advantage that, they are naturally inclined to it. But there's a lot of filth there, there's a lot of unhelpful stuff there, and if you don't put something productive there, they're already drawn to it. So you might as well use it to guide them, right? Which takes me to the question of poverty. So what we're doing, there's a program we have very close to our hearts, because once you start doing this gift system, we are getting corporates, and in fact, hopefully in just 30 days time, we'll announce a collaboration with a very large international organization to adopt. What we do is we do an adoption scheme. So for the poor children who can't afford it, you can adopt a child for roughly 9,000 naira to learn for an entire year. So that child will cover with that game the entire syllabus for an entire year, and just costs like $18. So we get corporates, we have a corporate say, I adopt this school, I adopt that school, and rather than spending on just painting a wall, you spend on the child's learning. So we want something that brings everybody aboard without keeping the poor on the side, and which addresses what they say. I'll say, why do we need the government? Why do we need to wait for the government? I started by saying I'm a passionate Nigerian, so I'm not a negative person, but in my short time here on this planet, of 100 things I've wanted my government to do, maybe they have done 3. So I'm not so sure they're going to change tomorrow. And this is the problem facing me, my country, my society now. So why am I still, so the question, what can I do? My team and I, we know tech, we know kids, we know phones, so we do that one. Somebody else can do something else. But if we're waiting for government to lead, really, has that been working before? So why would I wait? And once you start moving, I have 100% experience that they always show up. Because we are not asking for money. There are a couple of states that the governors chase us, but we didn't ask for money and we're helping them do their work. They say, how do we collaborate? We say, please come and cut the tape. So when they cut the tape, they feel happy, they're making progress, and me, I'm doing my own, they're doing their own. There's no big deal there. So I feel that there's still room for things we can do. government must do its own, otherwise it won't succeed. That's true. But at least after I've done my own, I can say, can you do your own? So I think it's an attitude we have to take up. It's a personal problem. If somebody stops me in the road and smashes my windscreen, it's my windscreen. So it is a personal problem. We should each say, what can I do about it? Thank you.
Well, I think this is the moment to give them another round of applause. I think really they have done a wonderful job. I want to thank you on behalf of everybody here.
There are the people who never get thanks. The mother, the spouses, and indeed all those who make it possible for us to even do that which we do. I want to beg your indulgence to thank the Prime Minister of the Osezwa House, my dear wife, Mrs. Gloria Osezwa, who made sure that I woke up in time today to go and read my presentation. Thank you very much, my dear. I see I'm a Well, I tell her, I say, nobody else can embarrass you except your husband. Because it's a very privileged position. You don't have any other husband but one. So it's only one can embarrass. Thank you, my dear, but don't blush. Black, but don't blush. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much. We'll be issuing the communique, and Charles will send it to all of you. And I will ask our friends in the media to also help us to give it publicity. I know a number of media houses are represented here today. I can't name everybody, but I do know I saw somebody from Sun newspaper ask question. In Vanguard is here. Which one? Oriental, an online paper. Of course, we have Silverbird, who was interviewing a lot of people. There are so many. But please, we all have a shared responsibility. We need to educate those who have to make decisions that affect us. If you are not sent a copy of the communique, please ask for one. If we can't reach you in time, you don't have your story correctly, we'll be glad to work with you to prepare the report. It is important that the facts are presented, that people are able to make informed decisions. But indeed, all I needed to say was to say thank you very much, because I know you will do exactly what I was talking about. I thank you again for being here and for being so patient with us. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
The role of the family, I think it's like the building block in society. This is where we build our societies from.
I think the family has a lot to do in the education of the children, because the first step to education starts at home.
Important thing is to know and recognize which biases we have, and what do we need to do to eliminate them.
It's not a simple answer, but the point is that socialization starts from the family. But the parents have to be socially equipped to train. So part of this whole program that I said, the pilot program, what did we do? You started by teaching the parents. So it's not just, they have to understand what parenting means. You have to teach what you call family enrichment or orientation, so that you know how to teach values. It's a culture, a way of life. Once it becomes a way of life for the parent, it becomes easier for them to teach it to their kids. So it becomes a way of life.